Hello, I'm Sora Luxon, and this is Magic Lesson 19. Think it like you won it. First, I'm going to begin by prefacing this a little bit by going back over what I was just recently discussing in a previous lesson, why we use all these rituals. It's to make an impression on the mind, which is the conduit for the energetic force that we're working with, simultaneously employing both the masculine and feminine powers of force and form. Combining them, we're using them in a combined way, right? The mental aspects of the casting we're doing in the conscious mind, along with the physical ritualistic drama that's necessary to make an impact on the subconscious mind, right? That subconscious mind that's very good at picking up on what we're emoting and picking up everything passively, but difficult to imprint on purpose, right? Consciously, which is why we have to do this very dramatic, over the top kind of ritualistic work to make an impression on that subconscious mind. And both are necessary in order to perform magic, right? You need the conscious and the subconscious. Now, in whatever way we're choosing to do that, either by high occultic hermetic ritualistic ceremonies or Wiccan spell mixing or spell works, magical incantations, sigil chargings, whatever tradition you're hailing from, right? Whatever magical operation you're doing, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're a druid or alchemist or witch or priest or magus or adept arcana. When it comes to magical energy that can be harnessed and used to create effects, that's always the same thing that we're working with. If we're actually working with it, if we're genuinely and authentically working with magical force, magical energy as occultists, then we're all working with the same thing. And that's what we're discussing. And we're working with it with as much intentional power of will behind it, as much positively charged and focused will as we can force into it, right? As we can push onto it. So then we can create those effects, maneuver it the way we want it to be maneuvered. It's meditation and action, visualization and emotion. I've been over this. And the will put onto that, intended will. And then there's also this other aspect, which I've discussed briefly before, right? Where you have to get out of your own way. You have to actually stop thinking about and caring about the specific magical casting or ritual you've just finished or magical work you've just done or sigil you've just charged. You've got to forget it. Because if you care about it too much after the spelled operation has happened, if you dwell on it, your conscious mind will then get in the way of its functioning properly, and it will get in the way of its manifesting. That's how this works. I'm going to need to do a lesson on the Tree of Life soon, I think, because there's just some basic understandings that are very useful to have of what this energy is that I'm talking about and how it functions, right? How it moves. And the Tree of Life, the Kabbalic Tree of Life, makes that a bit clearer. It's easier to understand because you have pictorial definitions and word labeling that make it easier to understand. Because that is what you're using and moving energies through when you're working with occult magic. You're working with the Tree of Life. It's path working. And you can't create magical power, but you are finding it within yourself, right? Because it's already there. It's already in all of us. But it's how you find it, embolden it, and then learn the skills and techniques and acquire the experience to maneuver it and use it intentionally to manifest the way you want to. Creative life force is a thing. And conjuring, evocations, sigil charging, Wiccan spells, magical operations of all kinds require of this source of creative life force in order to do what they do, in order to manifest. And going over the Tree of Life in another lesson, I think, would be a good way to start approaching some of that. I think I'll also do a lesson on divination soon. I'm reading questions that I've received on the screen in front of me as I'm doing today's YouTube podcast. And I have a lot of questions about tarot. And I have two really great questions on astrology here, which is a huge field I haven't even approached. So I'll do an overview to get you started on different types of divinations. And then perhaps I'll do other separate playlists for specific detailed methods of tools or operations, such as the tarot or dowsing or scrying or geomancy and astrology. It's huge. It's a realm of occult study and practices in and of itself. So I'll break that all down for you. There are so many great forms of divination that I can get into so much depth about that are going to be very useful in real magical work for anyone who wants to use them, who wants a common sense way of approaching them. And it seemed, I had a couple comments. It seemed like people really liked having the Hermetic laws in a separate playlist, because I had comments saying how it was easy to refer to, like when someone wanted to go to something for a reference, that they could just easily look it up in its own playlist. So doing a nice in-depth tarot playlist, if I go over each card separately so that you can then use it as a reference tool, that could be useful, I think, to new occultists, and a very, very common sense way of getting into divination. So I'll go ahead and get started on those for you as soon as I can. I'm trying to get these videos made for all of you wonderful magicians out there as quickly and succinctly as possible. I'm fitting them in when and where I can. I know that everyone's remembering to do their daily grounding work, right? You're doing your depolarization work. You're staying centered and powerfully depolarized, ritualistically or otherwise, meditatively. So maybe while you're doing that, just know that, yes, while you're at the height of your depolarization, know that I'm getting the messages asking me when my next podcast is coming. And the answer is that I'm fitting them in when and where possible for everyone on all these different subjects as quickly as possible. But if I were to stop and start responding to all of these messages of when I'm doing podcasts, I would be doing that instead of making this podcast right now. At 2 to 3 a week already, I think I'm doing 2 to 3 videos a week now. That's a good number for constantly and consistently new content creation, which is what I'm doing. That's what's happening on my part. As silly as it sounds, it takes time to record my own voice to do this service for anyone who's interested in approaching it in this way. It's just me giving you an opportunity, a method of approach, right? But that's a service I'm providing. And I have another question here too. I have to say no. There's never going to be a schedule, or to the best of my knowledge currently, there isn't a schedule or a specific day or time for when I make and release these little podcasts. There likely won't be ever, because doing so would actually limit and reduce my ability to produce these. If I had to keep it on a schedule, I might not be able to do it as often. So if the choice from this limited perspective, from this very closed question, is going to have to be incongruous spontaneity with more lessons made available whenever and however I can find the time, versus fewer lessons more predictably, say once a week on a Tuesday afternoon or something like that, I'm going to go ahead and say no. I'm going to stick with providing more as much as I can. I'm going to stick with what I'm doing currently. For those whose rational patience has risen internally to match and balance with their less rational sense of entitlement necessitating my providing a schedule of some kind, because I'm not going to. And this is a great turning point to get into what this lesson today is about, right? Having an attitude of gratitude and how it works in the occult and how you need it in order to work with the occult, right? Think it like you want it. There's this saying, drive it like you stole it, for driving a car that you really enjoy driving, right? It's that almost egoic type of passion. That's how fast you should be going and how much you should be engaging with it actively and just really impassioned by it. So I say, when approaching the law of gratitude, right? It's not a law, it's an occult practice. But when approaching the attitude of gratitude, I say, think it like you want it. So instead of passively appreciating things because they've been given to you, or because you've accomplished them, or because they happen to be there, I say, when you're appreciating things, appreciate, show gratitude for every single thing as if you want it, as if you didn't know it would be there. You didn't know it was coming. It's a total surprise every time, and it's the best possible thing that could happen at any given moment, like you've won it. Like you had no idea and you just won it and it took nothing from you. That is how you should be thankful. That is how you should be approaching gratitude. That's what I choose to do, right? Think it like you've won it. That's how I talk about having a grateful outlook. Now, it seems a lot of people get caught up only being grateful for things as they receive them. And in the occult, we work with the past, present, and future. So part of being appreciative and having this grateful mindset, which you need to have to work with magic, part of it is being appreciative for what you already have. Actively engaging in being thankful for what you have already manifested, what is already around you. If you're looking at a computer screen, be thankful for the time you have to look at it. If you're listening to a podcast, be thankful for having hearing, having ears in which you can get received communications. If you're sitting in a house, you created that, you manifested it. Be thankful for the roof over your head. And these should be you're not being passive when you're doing this. You are actively being grateful for all of these things that you've already manifested, things that you already have, things that happened in the past, right? That's part of it. Then you have the being thankful for the now, right? Being thankful as things are coming to you. Great. But in the occult, you then also have the future, that you should be appreciating those things that haven't manifested for you yet. You should be grateful for those things that are coming. They're not there yet, right? The intention hasn't been fulfilled yet. But you can, in this moment, be grateful for what is going to happen before it happens. So you have past, present, and future. You see this a little bit in candle casting, for instance. If you're doing a candle casting, an intended casting, say for a $5 bill, you, for whatever reason, this is what you're casting for, and you are focusing on that flame and you are doing your candle magic for a $5 bill, and you have to be visualizing it, be intending it, be pushing the will and the intention upon that manifestation that you're casting for as if it's already happening to you. I've discussed this previously. this is how you do this form of magic, right? You should be able to feel the paper in your hands if it's a paper bill, right? See the extra $5 amount in your bank account if you're looking at your bank account, say on your cell phone or something. You should be able to smell the air around you as this bill is being handed to you by someone, or as it's appearing on the ground before you, the temperature of the room you're in, as if it's happening. So what you're doing is you're meditating, you're visualizing what it is as it's happening in that moment, although it hasn't happened yet. And you're being grateful. You can feel the way the muscles around your eyes move when your eyes light up in surprise that that bill actually appeared in front of you. You can feel the appreciation, the slight surge of adrenaline when someone unexpectedly hands the $5 bill for you that you cast for, right? That's that emotion, right? And you're always approaching your altar, your magic casting, your candle magic. You're always approaching your occult operations with gratitude. Even before you've been given what you're casting for, you're grateful. You're grateful for what you already have, you're grateful for the magic itself, and you're grateful for what you will be given that hasn't shown up yet. That is an occult mindset of gratitude. And that's one of the ways in which you see it, right? That when you're being grateful for something that you're actively casting for in a magical operation that hasn't appeared yet, but you are capable of being grateful for it before it happens. And it's a big part of the equation of how magic manifests. Appreciation and gratitude isn't a little thing. This isn't a little quick occult lesson, this attitude of gratitude that I'm talking about. It sounds short and sweet, and so some people might disengage from it, right? It's almost quippy. It's like saying set it and forget it. Attitude of gratitude. It's this short little phrase, and it might seem unimportant because of that, but it isn't. It's of pivotal importance in the occult, in your magical workings, in your ability to draw, harness, and maneuver magical energies to match your intentional manifestations, gratitude always. And see, there is this reason, right, behind bread breaking, for instance, right? We have this tradition of bread breaking. You see it after rituals, sharing a meal, right? You'll see it after cooperative circles and Wicca, the partaking of, beer and bread stuffs, the acknowledgement and appreciation for what is had, munching on wafers being shared from a communal source in a communion where bread of the body is partaken of. Bread and wine alone, no, that's never enough. We know that, right? It's not enough. It's not enough for man. But it is a part of the puzzle, and it's a part of the puzzle that's always applied in occult magic, in ritual magic, and not just for its grounding or communicative properties, which are real and fundamental and necessary. They are awesome alchemical tools in themselves in that way. But it is also about this bread breaking, about the mental and magical moments that you take that are necessary to be thankful, to just focus on appreciation itself. Appreciation for the physical foodstuffs that you need that are going into your body. Appreciation for the companionship of those around you that you're sharing it with. Appreciation for being able to do or partake in any of these manifestations. That is all about thankfulness, about gratitude, and sharing in that gratitude together. It's a big part of one of the more elusive elements needed for powerful magical workings. And I say elusive instead of hidden, because it's not hidden at all, right? You see it everywhere. You see it through all these different belief systems, spiritual belief systems, religious belief systems. And you cannot get away from people talking about gratitude, right? So it's not hidden. But it is elusive because it's almost so overt. It's almost so obvious and necessary that it's overstepped, that it isn't approached correctly or actively by the individual because it's so overt it becomes elusive. Gratitude matters, and you have to do it actively. Now, I'm not going to go on and on about it the way some people do, because for one thing, they're out there doing that already, so you can listen to them. You don't need me to do that. But also because gratitude isn't the only thing that matters. And sometimes I think people perceive it that way or project it that way, as it's the only avenue or the only thing you need. That's not accurate in the occult. It's part of a much bigger recipe. It's an ingredient. It's a necessary ingredient. You're not going to bake the cake without it. But it's part of a bigger recipe that requires other things. And I firmly hold with the idea that if you tell someone who wants to listen something one time, that they're going to hear it and apply it as they choose to and use it as it's useful to them. And they're not going to need to be reminded. They're not going to need to hear about it over and over again in a bunch of different ways. If you need to be reminded to learn how to be thankful for things over and over and over, then you've been conditioned to not be thankful. And you're going to have to find a way to uncondition yourself and condition yourself to thankfulness. I don't know how one would go about that. You could go watch The Secret maybe over and over again, right? You could put it on repeat or fall asleep to it. It's only teaching you half of one hermetic law. That's all it is. But it is necessary. So if you need that or you want to do that, to each their own, feel free. My point is that yes, gratitude, appreciation, thankfulness, it does matter, and you will need it, and you'll have to use it for your magic to function properly. But those with the ears to hear will hear what I'm saying in this one single short YouTube podcast, right? They'll hear it this time and apply it, hone it, delve into it, allowing its evolution to take a course through them after hearing me say it only once and briefly in this lesson. Because they'll hear it and know how valid it is and how necessary it is, they'll start to apply it and they'll work with it actively, because that's what you have to do. Because constantly and consistently being thankful for what we have had and have now and will have is the occultic mindset. I, in this moment, am grateful for this podcast, for those people listening to this podcast. I am appreciative of you. I am thankful for you. And not because you're listening to this podcast, right? I'm thankful for your existence. I'm grateful that you exist as a co-creator. I appreciate you for being. That is the occultic mindset. And I don't have to know your name or see your face in order to do that. I'm doing it now. I was doing it before you listened to this. I'm doing it as you listen to me say it. And I'll be doing it in the future. Continually grateful that you exist. We are the ones that have it all after all, right? That's the occult. You were chosen. You have won and are winning and will continue to win again and again. Until next time.